Amun-Re is a classic game by Rainer Knizia. It is a game that was released before, and now it has been released again in a new edition by TMG, and this is the only one that I played. I haven't played the earlier editions, but I heard about the game. I was curious to try, so I'm happy that I finally did. The game is a Euro game for sure, and it is about abstract things such as investment and economy, etc., etc. Yet, differently from many Euro games and other designs by Knizia, this is a game that feels more thematic than most, more thematic than many other Euro games. As you will see, the turn structure is divided in different phases in which you do very different things that seem to make sense in the setting, and while probably do not arise to the level of creating a narrative, nevertheless, again, the sequence of events feels thematic enough and interesting and unusual in that sense. The game is set in ancient Egypt. The players will bid to try to control provinces and will also invest in agriculture, in caravans that may bring goods from other areas and generate money, and more important than anything else, you build pyramids, because what is Egypt without pyramids? So let's take a closer look at Amun-Re, and then we'll talk more in general about the design. This is the board of the game. It's pretty large. It takes up quite a bit of space on the table, but I like that because there'll be quite a little bit of stuff that will go on the board, and this way you have a lot of room for that. It has the Nile in the middle, then the board is divided into provinces. And yes, the background, the color may not be particularly vivid, but it is the desert, so what do you expect? I would say actually that considering the theme, the color palette is still quite pleasant. So the board, as you can see, is divided in provinces, and the players will fight for control of those provinces, and then they will also try to exploit the provinces to build various type of things and to gain money and influence. So, each turn is divided into 4 phases that are quite different from one another. They really give you the sense of a progression. First, you try to take control of a province, then you invest in it, then at the end you collect your harvest. I like that structure of each turn. There are 6 such turns, and scoring occurs at the end of the 3rd and the 6th turn, and at that point the player with the highest score is the winner of the game. So the board is divided in provinces. Each province corresponds to a card, and at the beginning of each turn, a number of province cards equal to the number of players is drawn, and these cards go in the corresponding province. We have Amarna, Thebes, Memphis. Oh, also it so happens, strange enough, there's supposed to be 1 card for each province. In my copy, 2 cards were double and 2 cards were missing, so I just simply fix that by attaching those labels. I don't know if that happened in other copies too, that I didn't have Saul, but I had instead of Saul 2 copies of. I don't remember which one it was. Anyways, you place there a number of cards equal to the number of players, and then players start fighting for them. Starting with the first player, the players place one of their scribes on one of the cards. The cards, as you can see, have numbers printed on them. This is pretty much an auction, so you place your scribe in the space indicating the number of coins that you're willing to pay for control of that province, let's say 6. And other players may go for other provinces or may outbid you. If a player places their scribe in front of you, when the game goes back to you, you may relocate, actually you must relocate to an empty space on another card. That means that you may go to a card that no one is bidding on, or you may go to a card that has someone else's bid, but you have to outbid them. So basically you continue like this with players relocating outbid tokens, outbid scribes, until everybody has a scribe on one of the cards. And maybe at the end that you get a card for free because everybody is in their position and you have been outbid and there's still 1 card that has no bids on it, then you get there and you get it for free. So players fight for control of the provinces, and when they have them, they of course have to pay. They had to pay, and money in this game is represented with cards, which is which is okay. Not as convenient as other formats, but it has its advantages because you also have then you have other cards that represent special effects, and they all go in a single hand of cards, so the opponent doesn't know exactly how many you have of each. I like that. So players have to pay for control of the provinces, and then they can start doing stuff with them. Once we establish control, we remove the province cards because it's simpler. That way we can see the board better. Then we start purchasing stuff to build stuff. On that area there of the board, you have the cost of the things that you can purchase in the phase after the bidding phase. You can buy special cards, which again are these cards that give you special effects and benefits depending on the icon on the card. You also see the cards have different colors in the back. That indicates the phase of the turn when they can be played. These, for example, are scoring cards that give you extra points if you meet certain conditions during the scoring round. This is a card that is used during the bidding phase, so that if you play this card, you can, and you have been outbid, you can relocate your meeple scribe on the same card, whereas usually you would need to transfer that to another card. So these cards can be bought during this phase, in the second phase of a turn. After that, you may buy farmers, that will go on the board later. And finally, also, you can buy stones. The camera was falling, we managed to save it, and I'm still talking about the game. That's amazing. Stones that you can use later to do what? To build pyramids. You buy your stuff, you have to buy it in this order: cards first, farmers next, and stones later. And the cost here is indicated here. The cost is based on the number of each things that you buy. For example, I may decide to get 2 cards, and then that costs me 3 coins. Then I want to buy 4 farmers, and that costs 10, and so on and so forth. So I spend my money during this phase, and then I also build the stuff. That is, I place it on the board. The farmers I place in regions that I control. In these lots here, I have to have lots to place my farmers. Also stones, I put them in provinces that I control, and 3 stones become a pyramid, and if I add 3 more stones to the pyramid, that is upgraded to a double pyramid. Hooray! Then, when everybody is done building, we need to make an offer to Amun-Re, who will open the dam and will flood the Nile and will fertilize our region. So the more we bribe Amun-Re, the more harvests we will get. In this phase, players choose money from their hand. Also, there are certain cards that can be used in this phase, and they simply secretly commit the amount of money that they want to offer to Amun-Re. Suppose that, for example, I want to give 5, then that's the card that I commit to. Another player is committing 3. Then we reveal our choices. Again, there is a card, a blue card, that says -3. So what happens is that that player, instead of adding to our general offer to Amun-Re, is stealing money. There's also another card that allows you to manipulate the total. So we do 2 things here. First, we see how much money we totally offered, and that will determine the tile that we will use in the next phase to see how abundant the harvest is. If, for example, the total that we offered after all adjustments and effects is 14, so between 13 and 22, then we're going to use this tile, which means that each farmer is going to produce 3 gold coins. If the total is, say, between 3 and 12, then we use this one, which means every farmer will only produce 2, and this icon will come into play. As you can see, the camel icon is not on all tiles, only on tiles that indicate that the harvest was not all that great. So as I said, first we do 2 things. First, we determine which tile we're going to use in the next phase, which is the harvest phase. Then the player that contributed the most is going to get 3 rewards, and those 3 rewards may be any combination of cards, farmers, and stones. The second player gets 2 such rewards, and then the other players get 1. With the exception of the player or players that tries to steal from Amun-Re, they don't get anything because, well, what do you expect when you behave like that? So players determine how abundant the harvest will be, they get rewards, and finally it is time to cash in, to get money. Now, during the last phase of a turn, which is the harvest and income, there are some areas on the board that represent, that indicate mines, gold mines. It's simply a number that isn't there without any other specification or indication. And as simple as that, you get that amount of money. That's a very good mine. This is a pretty good mine. During the harvest and income phase, you get that amount of money. Camels, so there are other areas that have camels with gold icons indicated next to them. For example, this one, during the harvest and income phase, these regions produce that number of coins, but only if the camel was present on the tile. So basically, if you have a lot of those regions, you're trying to boycott the harvest because you want your goods that you're delivering from abroad, you want those to be valuable. And if you have a lot of farmers, actually, then of course you want to hire a big harvest, because during the harvest and income phase, each farmer will produce the number of coins which is on the harvest tile that you're currently using. The harvest and income phase also has its own cards that can be played in that region. Here, for example, we have an extra gold for each farmer that you have. So you collect your income, and if it is the end of the 3rd or the 6th era, you also score. How much do you score? You score points for regions that contain temples, which is an icon that you have here. Then you score points for the pyramids that you control. A double pyramid counts as 2. Then you have 3 victory points for each pyramid that you have in the region that has the fewest pyramids. If, for example, I control these 2 regions here, and one has 2 pyramids and one has 1, then the fewest is this one. Then I score 3 points. 3 points for each pyramid in the region that has the fewest pyramids that I control. Then 5 victory points to the player with the most pyramids on each side of the Nile, and also you score the cards that give you that give you extra points if you meet certain conditions during scoring. Another interesting thing, so you do this at the end of the 3rd and the 6th, but at the end of the 3rd, there's also another interesting thing, which is a lot of time goes by between the 3rd and the 4th turn. That's why the first 3 turns are the old age, and then you have the new age. At the end of the 3rd turn, you clean up pretty much everything from the board but the pyramids, which means that then starting from the 4th turn, players will start fighting again for the same regions, some of which will already have some pyramids on them, and so the value now is different. Now there are different considerations that you have to take into account, because, well, certain regions may be even more valuable than they were at the beginning of the game. Oh, something actually didn't mention before, it's a little detail, but why not mention it? You may see some icons like that on the board, icons that have a brown background. These are instant advantages that you receive when you take control of the region. So when I take control of this region after the bidding, I immediately get 2 stones, or immediately get 2 cards if I get that one, this sort of thing. But the general idea remains the same. 2 ages, the second one building upon what has been done before, and so on a board that is different, because different regions have different values. But in any case, you repeat the entire procedure for 6 times, going through the auctions for the provinces, purchase and construction, offering to Amun-Re, collect income, harvest. Go there 6 times, and at the end, the player with the highest total is the winner of the game. I enjoyed this game quite a bit. I was pleased. I won't say pleasantly surprised, because I expected the game to be good, as a game that has had such good feedback in the past, and it has become a little bit of a modern classic. So, well, sometimes there are reasons why. I'm not like, oh, well, they got it all wrong. I'm happy to align myself with all the other ones that I enjoyed the game in the past. While the game is not particularly elegant, it's not a game where you have one or two core ideas that then result in a ton of nuances, because you do have quite a bit of moving parts. The different parts of the turn working differently from one another, and you do have clearly to think in advance about what you want to do next. But it almost feels like you're playing different mini games in various parts of the turn. Nevertheless, they do come together well. So although it's not technically elegant, it's still very cohesive. It has a very strong identity, precisely because these moving parts to get you the sense of a cycle of all the actions that you're doing, from taking control of the province to investing and finally harvesting. There's a certain sense of completeness, its own little thing, and in that sense, I really enjoyed how the theme is implemented through the mechanics, and the mechanics clearly are interesting per se, and create very interesting challenges. The resources, of course, it's great to be strong everywhere and to have a lot of everything, but you can't. So it's a matter of deciding how you want to invest your resources, and there will be some decisions, some resources that are more, I would say, reliable. A stone is a stone is a stone, and three of them make a pyramid, so you know what you're gonna get. Other ones may be a little more risky, may involve some more danger, but may also pay off better in the long term. And I'm talking in particular about drawing cards that may give you really powerful resources, may give you really good ways of scoring at the end. May be huge. So actually I found that the game has a little more of a random element than many Euro games out there, but not to the point that it becomes too random. Not at all. It's still very tight. It's still a very tight economic engine with that little element of unpredictability, of fog of, not war, but fog of market, that makes the game interesting. And again, I also like the fact that if you don't want to have to face that element, you can ignore it. Invest entirely in farmers, and pyramid and stones, and then you do not have to deal with randomness. You have to see what the opponents are doing. For example, when people are doing offerings, so functionally it feels like it's random, the total is random, but in truth that is also something that you can read to an extent. You can get a sense of what the opponents are trying to do, at least if somebody is going to actively trying to increase the harvest or to sabotage the harvest. So it really, there is a random element, but it's small, and I would say it's optional, and you can decide how much of it you want to take. So that also accommodates to different styles of play, from somebody who wants a tighter game to somebody who wants to take more risks. I really like that it's a design that feels tight, but it has different possible strategies. Also, since it's all about managing resources, I like how the game is tweaked and balanced so that you never have enough resources to do all that you want to do, which is precisely what makes a game interesting and makes the game decisions not trivial, because I wanna bid a lot of money to get the province that I like the most, and then I want to spend a lot of money to get a lot of farmers. Now I'm set up with an awesome lot, with a lot of farmers, and I don't have any money left to make the offerings to Amun-Re, and so now the other players that do not have invested so much in agriculture are gonna sabotage the entire thing, and now this turn the harvest is not gonna be all that good, so I get myself stuck. Or of course, if I don't spend much money during that phase, then I have a lot more stuff to offer to Amun-Re, but also less incentive to do so, because the way the things will pay off are not based on agriculture. Actually, I may want, again, the harvest not to be all that abundant. So there is that balancing element there, that really harvest is a great way of making money, that then you can invest in buying pyramids, which is awesome and give you a lot of points, especially if you can have a lot of pyramids in the region in which you have the fewest pyramids. But to be able to get to that point, there is a fine balancing act that you have to play. So just to be a little bit ahead of everybody else, but if you invest too much in one thing or the other, then that backfires, and that is good. It's bad for you, but it's good in terms of the design, because it's a smart design that feels very organic, in which everything that you do in one direction will affect something else. You pull something here, something happens here, you interact with that thing, and something else starts happening somewhere else. So the fact that you have a limited number of resources, many things that you want to do, and a number of resources which is limited within the turn. So everything that you do in a part of a turn leaves you open in a following part of the turn, and if you wait too long you'll have a lot of money and not much to do with it. This is to me the key element, the linchpin of the design that makes the game very interesting. On top of all the other things that I like very much, I like the fact that certain regions seem to be more like immediately, wow, this is much better than that one, but then there are other balancing elements that have been placed there that make maybe not all regions equal, but I would say reasonably interesting. Some regions are strong because of agriculture, some regions are strong because of the caravans or the temples or the mines. So you do not know where you're gonna go. But you can then adapt your strategy based on the places that you wanted to get and you did get, and the places that you didn't necessarily want and you got stuck with at the end. So nice design, really nice Euro game. It has a degree of theme which is not necessary really in Euro games, but it doesn't hurt either when you have it, and we have it here. But most importantly, you have a very interesting engine which has many moving parts. Again, it's not a minimalistic design in any sense of the word. It is not a minimalistic design, but it's not even like a merry, trashy monstrosity with too many moving parts. You have enough moving parts to create complexity out of a turn structure that has many challenges and forces you to do a lot of budgeting and adjusting as you go. Multiple paths to victory, multiple strategies, a lot of interaction like you often have when a game is about fighting for limited resources, and most important about bidding and auctions. A lot of good things, a lot of good elements, and most importantly, although you have many different elements of the design, the piece of the puzzle come well together. The experience feels cohesive and definitely comes together in a game that I enjoyed playing very, very much. A very solid design. The good reputation that it gained was perfectly earned in my opinion. Definitely a strong design, definitely a strong Euro game. One of the best games in its category that I played in quite a while.